If you think this offseason has been quiet for the Browns, it's because you haven't seen what just broke today. We've got 3 stories that every Cleveland fan needs to hear right now. Brian Thomas Jr. just hit the trade market, and the Browns are already being linked to a move that could change everything at wide receiver. Then there's the QB room. Anthony Richardson's name just emerged as a legitimate target, and the situation is more real than you think. And Quinshon Judkins, a concrete timeline has finally been revealed. And what the team said is going to surprise you. Drop a like, because this one is loaded. Let's start with Brian Thomas Jr., because the Jaguars just put him on the market, and the Browns have 2 first-round picks burning a hole in their pocket. Let's go back to last year's draft for a second, because it matters here. The Browns made one of the sneakiest moves of draft night, trading down from number 2 to number 5 and letting Jacksonville take Travis Hunter. Cleveland walked away with pick number 36, pick number 126, and Jacksonville's first rounder this year, which landed at number 24 after the Jags had a surprising turnaround season. That was a great deal for Cleveland, but here's where it gets interesting. Jacksonville gave up all of that, and Hunter only played 7 games. So now the Jags are sitting here on draft night with 0 picks in round 1, and they're feeling it. According to Pro Football Talk's Mike Florio, Jacksonville is now exploring ways to get back into the bottom of the first round, and the bait they're dangling? Brian Thomas Jr. Yeah, their own wide receiver, the guy they drafted in the first round just 2 years ago. Now, earlier this offseason, Jaguars GM James Gladstone called trade rumors around Thomas flat out fraudulent. Strong word, but here we are, days before the draft, and the story won't go away, because the truth is, Jacksonville has real reasons to consider moving him. Here's the thing about Brian Thomas Jr. The talent has never been in question. In his rookie year, the LSU product was electric. 87 catches, 1,182 yards, 10 touchdowns, Pro Bowl selection. The guy looked like a star, but year 2 in Jacksonville was a completely different story. In 14 games, he dropped down to 48 catches and 707 yards. And the number that really stands out, his drop rate went from 5.3% all the way up to 11%. That's not a slump, that's a disconnect. And the context matters. Most of those rookie year numbers came with Mac Jones throwing him the ball, not Trevor Lawrence, who was hurt. When Lawrence came back and the offense reset, Thomas never really found his footing. That chemistry just wasn't there. So here's the Browns angle. Cleveland was already connected to Thomas back in March. Reporter Tony Grossi mentioned the Browns were looking into a potential deal, and Bleacher Report even listed a Browns-Thomas trade as one of the moves that could still happen this offseason. The reasoning is simple. Cleveland's receiving core was the worst in the NFL last year. Jerry Jeudy is leading that group right now. They need help badly, and Thomas, at just 23 years old, is a high-ceiling buy low candidate. The question is what it costs. The Browns aren't giving up pick number 24 straight up for a guy coming off a down year. That would be too rich. But if Jacksonville sweetens the deal with an extra pick or a 2027 asset, suddenly this conversation gets real interesting. Cleveland has the draft capital, they have the need, and now Thomas is officially available. The timing lines up. Whether the Browns pull the trigger is the question, and we might have an answer before tonight is over. Okay, Brian Thomas would be huge, but now we get to the story nobody really saw coming today. Because while everyone's been focused on the receiver position, the Browns quarterback room just got a brand new name thrown into the mix, and this one changes the whole conversation. Let's be honest about something, the Browns have been a quarterback graveyard for decades. Since coming back into the league in 1999, Cleveland has started 42 different quarterbacks. 42, that's not a stat, that's a trauma. And right now, heading into 2026, they've got Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, and Deshaun Watson on the roster, which sounds like a lot until you remember that none of those 3 had a great 2025. Sanders was the big offseason pickup, and there's real belief around the building that he can be the guy. He's been in the facility all spring, putting in work, and new head coach Todd Monken has noticed. It's too early to really evaluate Sanders, Monken said, other than it's been great that he's been in the building. It's refreshing to see a player that recognizes where he's at and where he wants to get to. That's coach speak for, this kid is doing the right things, but doing the right things in the spring doesn't win you a starting job. Gabriel, on the other hand, hasn't even been spotted at the facility yet. Monken confirmed that publicly. And Watson, the guy has made 19 starts since 2020. 19. He's more of a question mark than a quarterback at this point, so ESPN's Bill Barnwell floated the idea of adding one more name to the competition, Anthony Richardson. The proposal is straightforward. Cleveland sends pick number 146 to Indianapolis and gets Richardson in return at roughly $5.4 million. That's a 5th round pick and a manageable salary for a guy who was a 1st round pick not long ago. Here's Richardson's story. Drafted by the Colts, he showed massive upside in 2024. Started 11 games, led Indy to a 6-5 record, and flashed the kind of dual threat ability that makes defensive coordinators nervous. But 2025 was a disaster. He lost the starting job to Daniel Jones. Yes, that Daniel Jones, and barely played all year. Then in week 6 against the Cardinals, something truly unlucky happened. A resistance band in the locker room malfunctioned during warm-ups, snapped back, and hit Richardson directly in the face, fracturing his orbital bone. He was done for the season. Indianapolis gave Richardson permission to seek a trade back in February. GM Chris Ballard said the calls have come in, but nothing has materialized yet. He's still technically a Colt for now. The case for Cleveland making this move is real. Richardson brings something Sanders and Gabriel don't: a different physical profile, a live arm, and the ability to make plays with his legs. At 24 years old, he's not a veteran solution, but he's a legitimate competitor, and competition is exactly what this quarterback room needs. If the Browns are serious about finding their franchise guy, whether that's in this draft, next year's draft, or through development, adding Richardson to the room costs almost nothing and potentially pays off big. This is a low-risk, high-upside move, and on draft night, with picks to spend, Cleveland could make it happen. Lots going on with the Browns' offense already. And speaking of offense, there's an update on Quinshon Judkins that dropped today, and every Cleveland fan needs to hear it, because after what happened to him in week 16, this news hits different. If there was one bright spot in Cleveland's offense last season, it was the running back room, and at the center of that was rookie Quinshon Judkins, a 2nd-round pick out of Ohio State who delivered 827 yards, 230 carries, and 7 touchdowns behind one of the worst offensive lines in the league. The kid was genuinely impressive. Then week 16 happened. Against the Bills, Judkins went down with a dislocated ankle and a fractured fibula on a play that was bad enough that CBS refused to show the replay. Surgery followed, and the team announced a 4 to 6 month recovery timeline back in December. Fast forward to this week. The Browns held their first practice of the spring, and Judkins showed up in his jersey on the field. He wasn't fully participating, working off to the side with trainers, but analyst Lance Reisland of Cleveland.com was there and had this to say: the running back looked tremendously fit, strong, and in great shape, and should be ready for the 2026 season with no setbacks. Coach Monken confirmed the positive outlook. We anticipate with each week he's going to get closer and closer. We do anticipate somewhere before the end of spring-summer we'll have him out there. And here's the best part: Judkins is about to run behind a completely rebuilt offensive line. The Browns traded for Titus Howard, signed Zion Johnson and Elton Jenkins, and are expected to add more linemen through this draft. Year 2 for Judkins could be a completely different story. Look, the Browns are quietly building something real here. Rebuilt offensive line, elite young running back coming back healthy, and a quarterback competition that's about to get a lot more interesting. My take: if Richardson lands in Cleveland and Judkins comes back at full speed, this team is going to surprise people in 2026. But here's my question for you: do you actually trust Shedeur Sanders to be the guy long term? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you're not subscribed yet, hit that button, because this offseason is far from over.